Get started. May have a few more people filtering in. My name is Clay Wheeler. This is my colleague Lindsay Petropoulos. We are both actually middle school teachers in Plano ISD, which is north of Dallas, about 20-25 minutes. And we're really excited to present this panel. We were able to present last year as well. So I think a lot of times people see that middle school is presenting a panel, they're like, oh, this isn't applicable to what I do. In our opinion, the things we're going to talk about today are things that you should be able to use no matter what level your team is. It's about staying organized, a better way to stay in contact with your students and kind of use technology. Maybe your campus or your university has a big push for you to be more digital, to use technology. And I think sometimes people feel pressured to just learn random technology and insert it into their curriculum, but this is a way to do it in a way that actually is going to benefit you, hopefully, and your students. Do you want to talk about your background at all?
Oh, okay. Yeah, at my campus, we have a lot of kids participate in speech team. I've got probably about 125 kids that go to tournament, and that's with us having to limit. We're only allowed 10 entries per event, per school. So I have on average like 115 to 120 students on my speech team, and most of them I don't see during the day. So this has been really helpful for me to stay in contact with those students that I don't see every day, be able to tell them, you know, hey, permission forms are due, hey, we're gonna have an after school work session, because otherwise I'd have no way of getting out that information to that many people, so.
Yep. And I have a large team as well, competing at tournament regularly between, I'd say, 65 and 85 students. Same issue as Lindsay. We do see some students during the day, but a great many of them I only see outside of school. So this helps increase communication. Because we don't have a projector in here, in the event that you want to kind of follow along with our presentation, so we have some things to click through. Last year we were able to project the different websites and stuff. We have a tiny URL website you could go to on your phone or your laptop real quick to follow along. It's tinyurl.com/TSCA Wheeler, Wheeler, which is my last name.
And you say it one more time? Yeah.
Sure. Tiny, tinyurl.com/TSCA Wheeler, and it should take you to a slideshow that says tech resources. That should pop up for you. Anybody got that up?
Got it,
Right.
okay.
Cool. Once we got that up, we will be off to the races. So to preface, while you're pulling that up, one thing our district offers that I would highly encourage if you can speak to or you have any sway with the technology people in your district, Google Education Suite is a wonderful thing. That's something that Plano ISD provides to the teachers and the students, and it allows a full access to the suite of Google products beyond what people generally are allowed to have. Does anybody else have access to that full Google suite? Awesome. Okay, then you'll be familiar with some of these products we're going to talk about. So Google Sites is the first slide under team management there. Lindsay and I both find that having a website for our team is really, really great. Essentially, it's replaced my handbook and my team calendar that I hand out, and I can make adjustments and updates to it in real time, and I do several times throughout the year. In fact, this year I was doing kind of a boot camp for new members, and a bunch of questions popped up, and I was like, that is not on the website. Let me update that, because I have like a frequently asked questions. If you click that blue link that says Google Sites, it actually takes you to my website. And mobile people, I'm sorry, it's not super mobile friendly, but it should display okay on a desktop or a laptop. But basically everything, this is all publicly viewable. My parents can find it, anybody can find it. And I sort of modeled mine after Lindsay's, I believe, and then kind of when new teachers come into the district, we show them my website, and I'm like, steal whatever you want, make it your own. But it's fairly comprehensive. I give a breakdown of how our events work, all of the rules, the time limits. For you guys, if you're TFA, you can put whatever guidelines, or if you want to just have a link to all of the event rules at the TFA website. It's just a place to keep everything together, and it saved me from having to make a million copies of a handbook, hand it out.
Or answer a million questions, because I'll have, my little 6th graders, well, how long is storytelling? Go to the Google site,
on the website.
find out.
Yeah.
For yourself.
Right. Yeah, our refrain has become, it's on the
Google.
website.
It's on Google.
Yeah. So I'm not going to take the time to walk you through everything on the site, because you can take a look at it, but I do have a frequently asked questions section, and that's everything that I get asked, from what do I wear to what do I bring. Might be different for you, but obviously you could personalize that. I have a whole section on expectations. What does a work session with Mr. Wheeler look like? What should you bring? How should you be prepared? How should you behave at tournament? What are good practices to be focused and all that? Anything you might have in a handbook, you can put on here. And then they also, if you were to click to something like team files and links, Google Sites has an interface where you can take other PDFs, docs, that kind of stuff that you have, and you can just post them directly to your website so that your kids can access it. So my permission form, some links to other sites that I use, I keep all of that on the website. And then I do have like a landing page that has more information for first timers and meeting announcements. I also have my calendar on here. So I use Google Calendar, which some of you might, and there's a way to embed the calendar and make it publicly viewable. So every time I make changes to my calendar, it's reflected on the website, which is a really beautiful thing. I don't have to go in and fix the calendar in like 3 places, or pull up my old Word document and do that. So if something does have to change, I can make changes in real time, and parents are able to see that. So that's the magic of Google Sites. If you can't use Google Sites for some reason, another free or cheap website builder, I would strongly recommend having a website for your team. It looks professional, but also it's pretty functional. Anything else about sites?
I was just going to say, with sites, it's pretty user friendly. So when you set it up initially, it might take you an hour, and then you'll be able to figure it out. So it's pretty user friendly to actually go ahead and set up the site. It took me, I think I did it in an afternoon at one of our PD days. It didn't take long at all.
Yeah, that's a great point. You don't have to know how to do web building or coding or anything in order to get that built. It's pretty intuitive and user friendly. So the next thing that we use with Google, and I promise it's not all Google stuff, but this is good stuff, is Google Classroom. If you're familiar with this, maybe you use it already. If you're not familiar, it's kind of a message board style app. You can communicate with kids, you can assign work to them, facilitate a group discussion, you can ask questions and get individual responses, group responses. It's pretty customizable. If you've ever used Blackboard before, it's very similar to that. It's kind of, I think, a kind of a streamlined version of Blackboard. Was a thing I think started when I was in high school. I did some like credit by exam or online type courses, and it's evolved a lot since then. And this year, at least for our district, they've even opened it up to where anybody that has the code, parents, anybody can join the classroom. It used to be a little more restricted, so pros and cons to that, but if you get the code out to your kids, then they can join that. I'm going to pull up a little demo for you. Lindsay, will you talk about how you use that with your students?
I like to use Google Classroom. I mean, I'll still use the site and direct them to the site, if they need to read their event rules or what the tournament time schedule is. But if I have a student come to me and say, I really want to do Reader's Theater, but I don't have a group, I'll say, go ahead and post a message on the Google Classroom and see if you can get somebody to join you, or if you need a duet acting partner, because a lot of the times my students come to me and expect me to find a partner or a group member for them, and I tell them, I can't do that. I don't know who you work well with. So why don't you post something on Google Classroom, and then they can chat. What's really great about Google Classroom is one kid will post a question, and by the time I see it, that question has been answered by 6 other students. So I really it's really them taking responsibility for, learning the events, learning the rules, and I don't have to get involved too much. I even have former students who have gone on and are freshmen at the junior high, and they're still members of the classroom. And so if any of those kids need help, I'll find that a lot of my kids that have gone on to high school will still keep up and will answer questions and will help them. Sometimes they'll post their debate cases and have a high schooler look over their debate case and ask them for any advice or any help. So I like that with Google Classroom, it's more like the students can interact with each other and can take ownership of their own practice time and things like that for
Yeah, it's a nice space for that, for them to be able to interact. I use this for all my classes, and certain classes can handle that function, certain classes cannot handle that function. It kind of depends on your kids and your level. But for the speech team, it is really nice. They're asking each other questions, they're posting stuff, and it's integrated with other Google stuff. So you can drop a slide presentation in there, you can drop a doc, a sheet, a link to anything, and they're able to get to it. I use it for reminders and announcements. We're going to talk about Remind in a second, but I kind of double hit. So if I post it in Remind, I'll post it in here. The nice thing about this is this gives me more than, Remind limits the number of characters you can type out. So it's a text message, and with this I can give a little more detail. But when you go on, if you just sort of scroll down, you can see there's sort of it's message board style, and you can post different items in here. You can take a look at what students are in there. You can give them information. So it's kind of a beautiful thing. I believe if you were to sign up for the first time, Google's really good about giving you a tutorial as to how to use their products, but
we get notified if a student posts a question. We get an email notification.
Yeah.
But like I said, by the time I go to the Google Classroom page to answer it, 6 other students have already helped another student out.
So that's a pretty good one to use. Any questions about anything we've talked about so far?
Yes, you mentioned there's, and one of my questions was about parents participating. I can imagine the pros, but what might be some of the cons?
It's going to vary by team. I mean, sometimes you have if you have a helicopter parent and they're trying to get too involved, their kid's not taking ownership maybe of the things that you need them to do. Here's the thing that I like, and this function still exists. If you don't want to give that code out to parents, there's a function of Google Classroom called Invite Guardian, and you can do it or the student can do it, but basically what they do is they put in a parent email address, and what Google populates is sort of a newsletter, for lack of a better term, update, and it emails the parent and says, okay, this is what happened in classroom this week pertaining to your student. The other issue you could get into with putting parents in there is privacy stuff, right? In terms of what your district says, communication with students, you don't necessarily want your parents communicating with other students. That's not a good thing always. I don't really have parents in my classroom, but they can see what their students are doing in there, which is fine with me. They can see communications that I have with the students and that their students, what their students are doing within the classroom. Does that make sense?
I kind of see how the parents might take over the site and make it for their own plans and, who's driving to this tournament, you want to share a room, that sort of thing. So I can see how that could conceivably become a problem.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure anytime you have an issue like that on Google Classroom, you can remove.
You can.
Remove people. Yeah.
You can remove people, you can mute conversations, you can delete content. I wouldn't put it out there as this is a tool for parents and students to use. I would say this is a way that students can talk to one another. And again, I think anything to do with parents that you're worried about, have a conversation up front.
Yes.
Hey, it's just a thing with the district, you're really not supposed to have, I know you know this kid because they grew up with your kid, but you're not supposed to have official communication with them through district technology. It's a safety thing. A lot of times that gets parents on your side. But we don't really have that issue because we're not giving it out to parents. A lot of parents just they want to know what's going on. What's happening in there. And so Google populates, like I said, that little kind of email newsletter. Here's what your kid's been doing. And when I use it for my classes, I'll assign things through Classroom as well. And it'll say hey, Johnny's got an assignment due on Monday. or Johnny hasn't turned in his assignment yet, or Johnny just turned in his assignment. So that can be helpful for the parents to know, helps with accountability, that kind of stuff too. We're all about accountability because we're teaching accountability in middle school. So next thing we have on here is Google Forms. You're probably familiar with these, but they're a beautiful thing. These are free. You don't need a Google Ed account to use a form. It's just a program that is very easy to use. You can put together a questionnaire or whatever. I use them when my kids join my team officially. They fill out a Google form to actually officially join the team. My sign-in sheet at meetings is digital. I have a tiny URL website for them that they've all memorized. They get in, they get out their phone, they log in, and that's how they get credit for attending my meetings, which is pretty great. You can use it to take, like I said, attendance, a survey, quizzes. My team captains this year had to fill out a survey through Google Forms for me to review. I, maybe more than any other product, use that.
Yeah.
That and probably Docs and Forms. It's really...
I use it to register for tournaments, and then that
I do the
way,
same thing,
if they're
I'm
like,
sorry. Yeah.
well, I didn't, I signed up, why didn't I get in? Well, everything is time stamped when you turn the results into that spreadsheet, and I can tell them, well, see, you registered at this time, but you know what, there were 5 people in front of you at this time, so I know when somebody registered for an event, because like I said, we're only allowed to have 10 entries per event per school, so I know right away who signed up first. So I use that for tournament registration, because before that, asking 125 kids who wants to do what event at tournament, that was a nightmare.
Yeah.
But with this, I don't even have to. We don't even have to be together to do it. And I pop that link up on Twitter, on my Twitter account for the speech team, on Instagram. I send it out through Remind. And so the kids know exactly when registration for a tournament is open.
Yep. And I actually do the same thing. And then they're able to see, we'll talk about that more in a second, but they're able to actually see if they've registered, because I'm taking that information, putting it into a sheet that they have a view-only privileges on, so they can see like, okay, I registered and Mr. Wheeler saw it and I'm entered for DI or whatever. So it's a beautiful thing, cuts down on all that paper. Forms, and I don't think we said this explicitly, what it does is it links to a Google Sheet and it dumps all of that data into like a spreadsheet for you. It's time-stamped and whatever other kind of questions you asked, it's all categorized. So that work is done for you, which is really nice. So you do have a spreadsheet that you can work off of and manipulate. You're not having to go through every response individually. So I would highly recommend using that. And you don't need, like I said, a Google education account in order to use that program. Drive in general, that's another thing you don't need a Google Ed account for. This is a great place to store things. It's drive.google.com. Everything that I used to have on my teacher account.
Everything is on
Yeah.
Drive. Everything's on Drive.
Literally just clicked and dragged everything onto Drive, and it's really a lot easier to collaborate, share. We could spend another 45 minutes talking about Drive. We won't. Is anyone not familiar with Drive, not use it already? Okay.
That's great.
A good way to use Drive, if you have extemp students, maybe you use something like, oh my gosh, what's the name of the Prepped. If you don't have Prepped, this is like a free, Prepped is a wonderful thing. If you don't have a Prepped subscription, and what we do at the middle school level is I just have a Google Drive folder for my extemp tub. All my extempers are invited to it, and then it's a Google folder, and it's our team tub. And only my students have access to it. It's invite only. And then when we're doing our cuts, I have subfolders for sort of foreign and domestic, and then subfolders from there. And I teach them how all of that works, and they all have access to it, and they're tubbing into that. And then what we do the morning of the tournament, the night before, is you can download it or you can take the folder offline so that we're off the Wi-Fi, and then it's all already on their device. So every kid has it. We're not having to, I don't have the Prepped login, I forgot my flash drive. It's on their device.
And then also you can, if you assign a certain amount of cuts a week, it's very easy just to type in that kid's name and see how many cuts that they've done and when they submitted it. And so it's really easy then to, turn around and get them a grade. If you assign 10 cuts a week or 20 cuts a week, you can very quickly, check and make sure that they've done that, hold them accountable for that. And I usually put like a student kind of in charge of it, and I say, you're in charge of helping me out, making sure that, the required amount of cuts are going in, and you're responsible for organizing it, and you're responsible, for making sure that somebody doesn't, mess the files up and put something where it doesn't belong. And so I just usually pick my most responsible, eager student and kind of let them up for me.
Yep. And we do, and really anything that I have, piece folders of anything that's been digitized, play scripts, that kind of stuff, and my students have access to that. And it's like, oh, Mr. Wheeler, I'm looking for a DI. Cool, go into this folder and take a look. If there's something that you like, or this gives you an idea of what you could choose. And then for public forum debate, also, we have like a mega folder. People are putting their cases in there, evidence, cards, all that kind of stuff. And we keep that within our team, obviously, but that way I have them peer editing cases and working with one another. And it's an easy way to do that because through Google you can collaborate on documents in real time. Moving away from Google, Sign Up Genius is a great site. Is there anyone who's not familiar with Sign Up Genius? Cool. It's basically an online scheduler. You can use it to schedule work sessions, organize events or activities, auditions. In our district, Lindsay and I also are the theater directors at our campuses. So I use it for everything. That's how kids audition for the play, when they want to sign up for a work session with me. So you go on, it's free, you create a free account. And other functions you can message anyone who's signed up if information changes or you need to provide more information about a particular sign up. We do before every tournament kind of a big, because we don't do as many tournaments as high school, kind of a big work night where we bring high schoolers over to work with our kids and we stay till 7, 8 o'clock at night from 3:30 to 7, and we're there. And I have my kids RSVP for that, so I know that they're attending. So I have a thing through Sign Up Genius, and they go on, they sign up, they tell me they're going to be there. And then, like I said, if they want to work with me in the mornings for work sessions to make it more equitable, they go on. This has replaced the piece of paper outside my door saying, who wants to work with me on Wednesday or whatever. It's all online. And this information all lives on my website. You want to sign up to work with me, go online, go on Sign Up Genius. So on the slideshow that we shared with you, there's a link to Sign Up Genius, but it's also just signupgenius.com, all one word.
So that's just the main function of it, is getting them signed up without paperless sign up?
Mm-hmm.
It's scheduling, and it sends you an email alert when someone signs up for something.
Okay.
And it sends them a reminder email that they've signed up for something,
Okay.
which is a beautiful thing.
Got
And then, like I said, you can do a group message through that.
Right.
You need to say, oh, we're starting auditions early, or we have this thing coming up, don't forget. You can send a group message to everybody that's signed up.
Or you can have, a lot of times people will use it if they want the parents to provide dinner. Well, who's going to bring a 24-pack of water? You can sign up for that. Or who's going to be, bringing in the sandwiches, and then parents can choose what they sign up for.
We use it that way too.
That's another way you can use
it. And it gives you templates. It's sort of like, what are you wanting to do? Are you collecting food items? Are you having a party? Are you having, tryouts? And it lets you kind of build. It's really easy to use as well. For people that just walked in, because we don't have a projector, we're just sharing. Did you guys share the
Probably can't see it from up here.
code with them? It's tinyurl.com, tinyurl.com/TSCA Wheeler, WHEELER, and then I'll get you onto the presentation. I'm going to talk about Remind a little bit.
Oh, yeah, okay. Let me go back. Remind is pretty amazing. How many of you have used Remind? Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So it's just a way for you to get to text your students, to communicate with them. If you have parents who are like, I honestly do not need one more text message coming through on my phone, there is an option to do email. What I like about Remind sometimes is a parent might have an individual question, and then they can message, they send you a message through Remind, so you can answer individual questions that any parents might have. That's not a reply all, so not the whole team is having to see that. I'll send out reminds that'll say, hey, don't forget, permission forms are due tomorrow. Or because it's middle school, I'm having to send out that remind about 5 to 10 times that permission forms were due yesterday, permission forms were due 2 days ago. And just reminding them, hey, tournaments tomorrow, we're having an after-school work session. I really try and limit the amount of text that I send, though, because I know, parents are like, I really don't need any more text messages coming through on my phone. But it's a great way just to be able to get a lot of information out to parents very quickly. You're not having to give out your private cell phone number. My kids use it if they need to get a hold of me at tournament. If they're having any kind of issue, or if they need to see me for something, if I'm holding somebody's medication, I have the Remind app on my phone so that if they need to get a hold of me, they know that's the way to get in touch with me at a tournament.
So the interface on your end is it is an app you download, it's free, and you're managing groups in there, and it's very user-friendly. But when you send a message, it comes through, I think it tells you it's from the Remind service, but on the end user's phone, it comes through as a text message to them. Does that make sense? And they have an option to reply, but it doesn't come back to you as a text, it comes back through the Remind app. That's a nice thing to keep as, these sort of digital policies and stuff continue to become more stringent within your district or at your campus. It keeps everybody above board. You could give your principal the login to your Remind. Everything's archived and viewable, all that kind of stuff. And we actually, a function that sometimes we have to keep in mind is because of technology, there's an acronym for it. If you're under the age of 13, you're not supposed to use certain apps and stuff. So when the students log in, if they're under the age of 13, they have to check that box, and we can't actually directly communicate with them. So what I tell my kids is if you're under the age of 13, which probably doesn't affect most of you guys, have a parent join too, and have the parent ask me the private question or whatever that I can then respond to, because it actually disables your ability to, which is for your protection as well. So anyway, it's pretty great, and like I said, reminders, things are running behind at tournament, or semis are posted, or whatever.
Award ceremony is starting in 30 minutes. You better be here to pick up your kid.
Right. Yes, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Tiny URL.
Oh.
Okay. Basically, it's a website to shorten web addresses. I love it because we use a lot of Google stuff, and Google likes to give you a nice, long, impossible to remember URL for your forms and your everything. So if it's something you're going to use a lot, it's worth going through to tinyURL, and basically you copy paste the long web address into a box, and then it lets you choose what you want the end. It'll be tinyurl.com/ whatever you want, and if it's available, then you can pick it. The only cautioner I would have is remember that then becomes the web address for that forever. You can't use that again and reassign it for a different purpose. I think we all understand how the internet works, but I'm just making sure. If you pick something like, oh, this will be good, and then you want to use it again later, you can't. So, and just keep in mind, the more of those you have, the more you want to. I actually have a doc on my computer with all my tinyURL links so that I don't forget what they are, and I have them all in there so that I know to send them out. But that's what I use. It helps kids to get to websites more quickly, more accurately, because I get to control what the name of it is, like the one that I gave you to get to this presentation. I'm sorry, it's early still. I have one for my speech team website, and my kids are really funny because at a meeting I'll be like, if you don't know the website, it's, and then in chorus everyone goes, tinyurl.com/SMS speech. They all know all of the different, we have one for our stay late night, we have one to sign up for work sessions, for auditions, for everything. And it's a real time saver, and then it kind of eliminates the, I couldn't figure out the web address. Is this a 1 or an I? Is this a 0 or an O? You know, you've got it all kind of under control. So that is a free service to use as well. S'more.
I'll talk about S'more.
Perfect.
So S'more is S'more's pretty fantastic because you can create a newsletter. They have lots of templates. It's user-friendly. At my school, I'm responsible for doing the daily announcements, so I use a S'more that then you email the link out to the parents, or they post it on the school's Facebook page. And if you click on, is that one yours, the first one?
They're both yours. I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you click on that first one, MR5QW, maybe should have done a tiny URL for that. This is my first newsletter that I show at my very first speech team meeting. I don't put all the information on there. I try to direct them to the Google site as much as possible, but within this newsletter, I'll have links to the Google site. And if you take a look at it, it's just, I don't know, it's like more fun to look through. It's like more pleasing to the eye than just like a Google Doc or something. You can put pictures in. So what I'll do after we have a speech tournament, I'll update the S'more and I'll add pictures from that day. I'll post the, I'll put the placings up, how we did at tournament. I'll post those reminders like, hey, I really need you to pick your kids up on time from tournaments. And here's when our next tournament is. Here's when registration for that tournament will open. So it's kind of nice to do after you have a tournament, do like a little wrap up, and the kids like to see the pictures from that day, or I'll ask them to email me pictures so I can put them on the S'more. But yeah, that's the one from the first speech team meeting that I go over, and then that gets emailed out to parents. And then let me see, is the second one.
And while you're finding that, I'll make mini updates. I have a main one that I use for meetings, and actually at my meeting, this is what I'm pulling up on my projector, and I kind of helps me organize my thoughts. And I'm like, we're talking about this, and then this link is on my website and goes out to parents. So parents are like, hey, what happened at the meeting, or my kid missed the meeting. This is what we covered at today's meeting. And that's how I use my S'more.
Yeah,
So.
and then if you look at that second S'more link, that's an example of one that I'll do after tournament that has the results. It'll have pictures. This one was our very last tournament of the year. So we were getting ready to go on summer break. So I said, hey, anybody want to go to debate camp? Here's information on that. I still include tournament event rules because it's still at the very last tournament of the year. I'll have kids who are like, I went over my time and I got disqualified. And I'm like, did you read your rules? Here they are again, just in case. So it's nice to have like a little tournament wrap up,
Yeah.
and that's what I do besides the one that I do at the beginning of the year.
All right. Social media. Now, mileage is going to vary here based on what your district or university or whatever policies are, but just some kind of basic things. I think we all know this. We all sit through trainings on this now. Anything you do is public. Please don't communicate with your kids via your private social media accounts. I mean, do so at your own risk, but just don't do that. Blurs the line between private and professional anyway. And these accounts are free and they're so easy to make, you may as well make a public one. Figure out what your students use and whether or not you can use that to engage with them in a meaningful way. For example, all of our kids use Snapchat. Snapchat's wonderful. I haven't found a way to engage with my students in a meaningful way through Snapchat, and I don't know that I ever will, because a lot of it is, there's the private stuff and the stuff that disappears, and I have a personal Snapchat account, but I don't really think that it's an effective tool for communication. So I think sometimes people are like, I want to be relevant, I want to be cool, or I want to reach these kids. Just make sure it's something that is going to increase your communication and your engagement with your students. Make sure you know what your district policies are. Make sure you have photo releases. In our district, the kids all basically have to sign a photo release, every single student at the beginning of the year, so that we very quickly get a list of kids we can't publish, and then each campus keeps that. Very rarely do I have a kid involved in speech and debate that is on the do not publish list, but it happens. So we just have to be careful about that. Make sure you know who those students might be on your campus. You're probably on Facebook. Your kids probably aren't on Facebook. Probably not. My kids definitely are not. And that's like an old person thing to them. So I would, if you feel like it's good to create a Facebook page or group for your school, your debate or speech program, go for it. I personally would recommend against it, unless you know your students are on that platform. We use Instagram the most, and then Twitter.
Our district's huge on Twitter.
They are. They
if you don't have a Twitter account, they come and find you and ask you why you don't have a Twitter account yet.
Yeah, I think our district thinks that it's
everything.
2012 or 2013 when Twitter's still very important, but when everybody was like, Twitter's the new thing. Last year, our district was like, have you guys heard of this thing called Twitter? And we're like, it's amazing. All the kids use it. I was like, do they?
And parents can follow you and they can see what you're doing in the classroom. It's fantastic. Did you post today? Have you posted today? You better post today.
And I think it's because all of these people that make their money like giving educational talks, and they go around and everyone's like, use Twitter for engagement. Twitter's great. We do use it. My students are on Instagram all the time, so we have a public Instagram page. If you click through to those links, you can see our Instagram feed and our Twitter page. How can you use it? Different ways. Reminders, like Lindsay said, she'll put links out. I'll put links out through there. Pictures of the kids. It's kind of fun engagement for them. Kids that maybe won awards, or just kind of like, I like to do like slice of life things. My kids are practicing. They're prepping for a tournament. I'll take some candid shots of them. I had team leaders working with young students the other day. I took some candid shots and was like, shout out to my team leaders. They really liked that. And they'll comment, say goofy, things to each other on there.
We'll post rounds
at tournaments,
like semis,
breaks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because we're both usually in tab anyway. So as soon as I have a posting, instead of waiting for the printout to go up, I'll just kick that out through Instagram and Twitter. And I actually have kids at other campuses that follow us on Instagram because we post stuff first, which I think is kind of funny, but they want to know what rounds are out and all of that.
And I have some of Clay's students that follow me. My kids will follow Clay. So it's... And
we give each other engagement on our public pages as well, and we shout each other out on Twitter and on Instagram, and our kids like that. It helps with the cooperation between, it's a competition, but it's a friendly competition, and like we're really good friends, even though we're at rival schools and that sort of thing.
And it kind of freaks the kids out when they see pictures of us and we're hanging out. The kids are like, wow, what are you doing?
Yeah, we like to shout each other out too. And then, whatever you feel comfortable with from there, occasionally I'll post things that I feel like are safe and okay for me to post that are a little more private so that my kids get to know me better. For example, my wife gave birth to our first child a couple of weeks ago. Thank you.
Actually, poor guy, you're not getting much sleep.
Yeah,
sorry.
I got a lot of...
He got a lot of sleep last night?
My wife won't see this. I got a lot of sleep last night. No, it's great. I was FaceTiming with her last night, and I was like, don't be mad, but I'm so excited to sleep. She's like, I'm excited for you too. But for example, I had, when all the kids were like, we want to see your baby, when's your baby, your baby, your baby, your baby, because they're in middle school and they want to know. So when my baby was born a couple, day later or something, I posted a picture of being my baby on there. I feel like that's okay, something I felt like was appropriate to share. But mostly it's going to be pictures of like my kids. Sometimes I'll post a meme on there because middle schoolers still think memes are funny if I find a clean one. Well, we're kind of like overgrown middle schoolers.
I use a lot of memes.
But just different stuff like that, engagement with kids. If I run into a former student somewhere, we'll take a quick picture and be like, shout out to this alumni. Just different stuff like that. Because these kids are always on there anyway. It gives them more buy-in. My students are really funny. They strive. They're like, so when am I going to get on the page? When am I going to be featured? When am I going to be on the page? I was like, I don't know. Do something worth being featured, and we'll talk about it. like go out and win a trophy or help me with something or be a leader, and maybe I'll snap a picture of you. So that's a fun thing for us. That's how I use it. So information and then kind of buy-in, engagement with kids. And then like I said, our district this year actually, and I'm totally down with it, we had to turn in our social media passwords. Maybe you've had to do the same thing to our administrators. Again, that's just a check on you for your own safety. And I like it because if someone did start direct messaging you, you can go to your principal and be like, hey, I'm getting these direct messages. Can you help me deal with this? And you can go to somebody that's like, that's part of their area is to work with that. To me, it's not any more like scary than communicating via email with somebody. You know what I mean? But it's all trackable, just like sending emails and stuff like that. So as with any social media, kids are so familiar with it, they might get comfortable with you. Just make sure you're maintaining that appropriate level of distance when communicating with your kids. Make sure to say that. So those are kind of the main things that we use. TSCA is all about QR codes this year. We didn't include that in our presentation. QR codes. If you were to Google QR code generator, there are tons of free websites that do that. If that's something you're like, what is that? It's a unique sort of visual, sort of pictorial code. And you can take a web address and turn it into this little, looks like a sort of a little pixelated image. And then your phone can take a picture of that if you have a QR code reader app, and it basically it looks exactly like that.
Yeah.
Yes, and it redirects you to the,
Oh, yes.
it'll redirect you to the website that you've assigned it to. In case anyone out there on the internet doesn't know what a QR code is, it looks like this. So these are great too.
I'll use this for kids too when they come into a meeting. I'll have them scan it because and we have to do that at our PD days.
Yeah.
That's how we log in to show the district that we were there on PD days.
So you could do this in lieu of a tiny URL if you want to. It's great for, again, sign up for a work session, make a QR code, have them scan it, put it on the bulletin board outside your room. Or auditions or anything like that. Sign up to bring food to our potluck. You can make a QR code for pretty much anything that you want for your website. And then most kids will have that app on their phone. They can scan it and it redirects them to that website. So
Did think of something.
go ahead.
Okay. I have also started using Canva. Does anybody use Canva? Canva is canva.com, and this is to create. You can create almost anything like Word. You can create a poster, a flyer. It's free. Canva.com. I created my speech team posters, and the QR code is what reminded me of it because I have my QR code on my speech team posters. But if you have like I use it a lot for theater. You can design like your show posters, but if you have anything coming up, if you want to advertise your tournament, Canva's a super friendly, free way to design posters. And if you if you'll join, it's free to join. And there are some designs that you have to pay for. Just ignore those and use the free ones. But I use Canva to design all of my posters, my speech team posters, my show posters. So for instance, here's my speech team poster. And I did this on Canva, super easy to advertise if anybody wanted to join Canva, to join the speech team. And then at the bottom I put my QR code. Sorry, I will put the link on the, I'll embed it in the PowerPoint. But if you'll just play around with Canva, if you're going to be hosting a tournament, you can create a tournament poster or a tournament flyer. It's super easy to design, and they have literally thousands of designs. When you select poster, you're gonna have to scroll through a lot of different templates. And sometimes you can find one that will lend itself to speech or to theater. But I've started using Canva a lot this year. Even I've used it for directions on how to join the speech team. I selected postcards and then that way they print 4 to a sheet, and I just cut them out. So if a kid's like, how do I join the speech team? I just hand them one of those. Okay, so I'll put the link in the PowerPoint for Canva.
I came up with a little slide. You can just add
Okay.
or link to it.
Thank you.
It's in
That's
there.
another one that I use.
Okay, so before we close out, we got a few more minutes. We always like to learn new things as well. Obviously, we don't know absolutely everything about how to utilize technology well. Is there anything that you guys use with your team that we didn't mention that you feel like is worth giving a shout out to, or that we could include in our presentation?
We're very thorough. This is one of the most helpful panels I've ever been to at TSCA. And
Wow.
I love TSCA.
Can you say
Thank
that?
you.
To
I'll
the
say that
camera?
to the end. No, I love TSCA and I get a lot out of it. This has been one of the most informative panels I've ever been to. This has been great.
So if we presented it again next year, you would
I'll
recommend
come
it to
back.
people, and you
I'll
would come
come
back?
back.
We were really excited to do this panel because this has changed everything. I'm not, spending hours and hours on paperwork or on communication or collecting email addresses. And I also really like it that it puts the responsibility on the parents and the kids to learn more. So I'm not, because before it felt like I was spoon feeding everything to
Yes.
them. And so this has just changed everything for me.
Yeah, this is great.
And it's, like I said, a lot of times our districts are pushing us to be more, tech friendly in the classroom and this and that, almost in a way that I feel like isn't attached to meaning. And so this is a way to give that purpose and meaning, like I said at the beginning, to sort of put technology to work for you. To me, this was like the jump from a few years ago. So a quick story, I was coaching middle school, and then I spent a year co-coaching at the legendary Plano Senior High speech and debate team with Karen Wilbanks and Cheryl Potts. And I went and was running tab with Karen Wilbanks at a tournament, and I was like, all right, where are papers, where is I? And she started laughing at me, and I was like, what? And she was like, we use Joy of Tournaments. And I was like, I don't know what that is. She's like, yeah, Joy of Tournaments is this. And so she walks me through the software, and like my mind exploded. I was like, this is amazing.
Because
So
we tabbed with
we used to do it by hand with
With
paper,
hand
like
at our
super
tournaments.
old school, at every tournament, and it was like it took like 15 people to run tab. It was crazy for a middle school tournament. So I went to my coordinator and I was like, is there a way we could find some money to pay for this? I was like, my school we could volunteer to pay for this if we need to, but like, this is amazing. So for me, the jump from tabbing by hand to Joy of Tournaments, computer tabbing was life-changing. This is that same degree for me. Taking stuff paperless, that communication, it changed my world in a huge way. So shout out to Joy of Tournaments, obviously, but that level of what I was able to do and manage things a little more effectively is great. Most of the things that we mentioned today have a smartphone component to them, especially the Google stuff. So it's really easy to kick stuff out even if you don't have a laptop or you're not in your classroom. Remind, Drive, Classroom, Sheets, Docs, all of those have their own sort of native apps that you can use that are really, really great. And it makes communication and engagement. And then obviously social media apps as well, Twitter and Instagram and that kind of thing. So you can do a lot of management from your phone as well, especially those apps that you use for quick communication like Remind in Google Classroom. It's really easy to pull that up, type something out, and get it out to parents quickly or your students or whatever.
And I tell my kids to bookmark the speech team site on their phones, because I would have kids saying, I broke to semifinals in poetry. What time does that start? Well, look it up, find out. So I tell them to bookmark that page so that they're able to access, and I'll post school maps on the Google site. So if they need to know where they're going at the tournament, they can pull up that map on their phones. And it's I can actually get out and see my students, whereas we were in the tab room the whole
Right.
time.
Well, and it eliminates the "I couldn't find you and this happened," which was a popular refrain for me at tournaments. I don't know if it happens to you guys. This thing happened, or
This judge,
no, no, yeah.
this judge was on their phone the whole time and eating.
This, judge.
This judge was on their phone the whole time and eating. This judge was on their phone the whole time and eating. This judge was on their phone the whole time and eating. This judge was on their phone the whole time and eating.
Yeah.
And,
Or-
yeah, and they can text you or send you a message through Remind.
And even things where it's not like a complaint, but like, hey, I showed up to my room and my judge isn't there. And I was cross-entered and I came back and they're gone. If you text me through Remind, maybe we can get you seen by the judge and track them down. If you wait 2 hours to tell me that it happened, I couldn't find you. My partner's not here yet, Mr. Wheeler, what do I do? Remind takes a lot of that. I don't know where you were, because I have my phone. Everyone's always got their phone on them. So that's been kind of a game changer for us. And I know that my kids always have their phones with them too. So, and we teach them how to use all of this stuff too. So a lot of it is going to be training your students and your parents to do that effectively. And then I'm trying to think. One more thing, and this isn't necessarily an app that I use, and your kids probably do this intuitively already. I have them take pictures of postings, maps, anything at a tournament. It's replaced the old school write it down. Literally pull out your phone, take a picture of the posting. You know the room number, you know the speaker order, everything. Take a picture of it. And you know, most of the time we're good with phones in the rounds as long as they're silenced, but take a picture of anything that you need and make sure that you have that information. Be responsible. Yeah.
And I've got a couple of questions and one question and or comment
Okay.
to share. What do you see, or do you see, aside from Snapchat, anything on the horizon that is going to replace Instagram? My second one, let me just get through all this and I'll let you answer.
Sure.
Is there any kind of legal jargon that as you're participating, that your district you're putting this on your stuff to protect us as well as yourself? And last but not least, are you using any kind of platforms like Hootsuite to, what am I trying to say? Put everything, all your
out.
social media out at
Sure.
once?
All good questions. What's the next Instagram, Snapchat? I haven't seen anything
That's functional.
functional that's popped up to replace that. Those have a lot of staying power for now. I assume whatever's next will be, again,
We'll find
visual. It'll be picture or video based in some way. Our district has a personal tech and tech engagement policy that we sign on our end that covers us legally and that the students and parents are made aware of. So I would just get with your campus or your school to make sure you know what those policies are. And then if you want to put a CYA in with your kind of personal stuff, this is how this is to be used. Create your own tech policy, that's totally fine. We just kind of echo what the district wants us to be doing. So our district is very litigious about stuff like that, in a good way. They're super litigious about that.
I did have to add something to my contract this year because did have incidents of kids posting negative things about members of their own team, members of other teams. So I've had to add that back into, or I've had to add that as a component to the contract that they sign. So I think anything you want them to be responsible for or understand at the beginning, you just add to whatever contract or paperwork you have them sign at the beginning.
And then because I don't use Facebook, and I haven't looked at Hootsuite in a long time as far as what it integrates,
Right.
because Hootsuite's like an aggregator's not the right word, is it? But like
It's a platform where you can
pull in a bunch of
post
different,
out to Twitter as well as
you're cross
Oh,
posting.
3 or 4 or 5 others.
So generally what I do, if I don't have something that's just text-based, if I'm posting a picture, I'll go into Instagram, I'll create the post, and then I have it linked to our school Twitter account, and that's just another button you toggle, and then it tweets it for you immediately. If there were an app, I'm not aware of one, so be on the lookout for that. If there was something that had Remind, Classroom, everything all together, sure, I would use something like that to push
That'd
it
be
out.
awesome.
As far as I know, that doesn't exist yet, so, but yeah, maybe by this time next year, we'll have something to present.
Not an expert on it, but I think Schoology might be close to that.
Schoology?
Schoology. I don't know that one.
Okay.
I was going to say, I'm thankful that all the things that you're presenting have been about what's going on in the classroom. What I'm also hearing are things that can be used to help tournaments run smoother. I mean, like I told you earlier about the Remind, but I'm thinking of other things like with the Google Forms, to use that for ads and drops, or some other things. I just just had a bunch of stuff like
Your brain's
lights
probably
just go off, and I
exploding,
was
like, how can I use this? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about
Good,
that,
good.
and hoping that we can find better ways to make tournaments run even more efficiently,
Mm-hmm.
to have even less traffic in the tab room,
Mm-hmm.
so people can address issues electronically versus, sometimes some people like to get in the shouting matches and stuff versus, well, I sent you something on this particular platform. Did Tab see it? Did they resolve it? And Tab can respond quickly back to resolve that issue.
Yeah.
And that's a great thought that we could totally get rid of the old paper slip add drop. You could have a Google form when the coaches check in. Do you have adds or drops? Because that would go directly into a spreadsheet that Tab could keep up with. That would be a really smart way to use a Google form. Or everyone's in a remind group for that tournament or something like that. Hey, we've got 3 adds and 2 drops. That's really smart. And like I said, for engagement with students at tournaments, we're posting through social media, here are the breaks, that kind of stuff so that they're keeping up, and then through Remind. This is running ahead of schedule, behind schedule, make sure you're getting to your next round. Just those little sort of touches and reminders throughout the tournament.
So on that Canva.com,
Yes.
when you create something on there, can you transpose it onto a different platform? So I'm thinking.
Yeah, it downloads as a PDF.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you look at the Canva page that Clay just added, I put a link to the poster that I created for my speech team, and that was, I can't find it. that was completely free, and so you can change it on Canva, and then you would just re-download the PDF, but it downloads as a PDF. Yeah.
I'd like to take that and put that on Joy, because Joy is kind of limited in the look of it.
Yeah.
You can put it in there. Any more questions or comments for us? Your feedback is really, really valuable.
Or if you would like for me, we can sit down with you and show you any of the things that we talked about. If you want to see what Classroom looks like or what Canva looks like,
Yep.
we can walk you through anything like that.
And so finally, again, I'm Clay and this is Lindsay. On the last slide is our email, our email addresses. Feel free to reach out to us. We're very responsive via email. Or like if you want to find us later today or tomorrow and talk to us, we really like empowering other teachers through technology. I'm glad this was useful. I think we'd like to present again next year if we can, and just get good promotion. Word of mouth is really important though, so tell your people, your coworkers that this was a helpful panel to you. Maybe communicate that to your interest groups, and then maybe we can get good visibility for this next year. But I appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah, and email any questions. We'd be glad to help.
And I will say too, even if you're familiar with the platform you guys are presenting, it's like, oh, I hadn't thought of it in that.
Yeah.
that
Usually that way.
And that's why we
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, if you, in the next couple of days think of, oh my gosh, I thought of a great use for Remind or something else, go ahead and let us know and we can include that. And we'll absolutely steal your idea.
And share it with the world.
Yes.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you so much for coming.